crazy to me, absolutely crazy to me. And just for some context, like for me to go to the MX of Nations, it was $800, just a one-time fee for FIM to be able to have a license to be able to do any sort of media stuff there. And I was just like, okay, sure, right, sure, but then they won't pay the riders, and there's 100,000 people at the event that are paying for tickets. It just seems ludicrous that they can't come up with $100,000 for the at least purse money for stuff, But yeah,
Yeah,
Not being. Go ahead,
so
Valentine. No, go
it
ahead.
it's like it's really complicated, all that that's calculation, or I don't know how to say that, but at the end it's a business, and you have to fight to be the best. And when you are the best, you're allowed to win your money. But I think the problem is like, I believe here in the US it's better than in Europe, but you have more media cover, and the best should have a Netflix series on motocross. Like this, we could increase and go bigger, and bring new sponsors and stuff like this. More we have visibility, more money we can have, and at the end we can give money to everyone.
because it's entertainment. I know that you guys are there racing, but as far as from a selling perspective, it's all about entertainment. And the irony in the whole thing is, think of who owns Supercross here in America. They're an entertainment company. They do circuses, and Disney on Ice. And then just on the side, they do motocross. I mean, yeah, they do monster trucks, but they own all the monster trucks. And so it's literally just a show, right? So yes, it's a professional sport, but it needs to be entertainment. And the Netflix shows I love those. Like, I don't really follow the F1 races. I kind of almost wait till the F1 season is over and for the show to come out, because I want to see all behind the scenes and the guys all talking shit. And, I love the Unchained by the Tour de France. Like, all those things are awesome.
Yeah.
I have to totally agree. Michaela and I never were into Formula One. Netflix comes out, and now I know a little bit more about Formula One. Now we have a Formula One race in Vegas. We've always had one in Miami, but now we've got two races stateside. So to Valentine's point, if you don't think that type of incremental exposure grows the sport, that's silly. Another thing that's kind of interesting is, if you look, the Formula One race teams get $0 from the Netflix show, $0. And they're okay with that because, like they said, exactly what Valentine just articulated, they know that exposure opens up more exposure for their existing sponsors. It opens up opportunities for new sponsors. People like myself and Michaela, who knew nothing about Formula One, Johnny, you and I spoke about it briefly once before. I'm sitting there watching the Netflix show, and I see this gentleman that buys the Aston Martin Formula One race team. I just said to Michaela, what's this guy's background, right? He's this big fat guy that doesn't look like he's got any race background whatsoever. And then I look him up, and he's a fashion designer, multi-billionaire that just wanted to own a Formula One race team. So he just literally walked in and bought the Aston Martin race team.
Mm-hmm.
To Valentine's point, it's an outside revenue stream. Somebody that was outside the sport bought into the sport, and now look
Coach,
at us.
think about it. Like, I can't think of a top of my head the media company that bought F1, but they bought F1 for like $4 billion, and now it's worth like 8 to 12.
Yep.
And they've paid for Netflix to come in and film, which I think has been $10-20 million a season, which is a lot, right? That's a big production, but it is doubled. And then you think of the drivers. The drivers have doubled, quadrupled their following on social media because of this. And you don't think, like, Valentine, if Feld or somebody decided to actually pony up, because I think Netflix offered them, and it was something like $5-6 million to do it, and they said no. But if they hypothetically did do it, and you're involved with it, it's almost guaranteed that your Instagram followers is going to go from 70 to 200 plus, which is then going to make it easier for you to sell yourself to other sponsors. To even if you didn't have a factory or a privateer ride, you could do something like Logan Carnow with OnlyFans or whatever to be able to go race. Like talking with Josh Herron, who is not anymore, but he was the defending Superbike champion here in America. He says that over half of his salary has come from social media with the OnlyFans deal, right?
Okay.
Just because he's got 200,000 followers on Instagram and like 100,000 on YouTube. He said that that's what companies look for. So that would be growing exponentially because new sponsors would be coming in. And then, Coach, to carry it back to what you were saying, eventually you might have a billionaire that says, hey, I want to own the American Honda team or whatever.
Well, look at Max Verstappen. I think last time I checked, his annual salary is $40 million a year. That's a salary. No bonuses, that's just a salary. Well, you start looking at the business model. If anybody runs a business, right, and you start looking at LTV, long-term value, and CAC, cost to acquire client, you start doing all these mathematical calculations associated with business. How can somebody afford to pay a driver $40 million a year? And then you look at a football team that has, I always go to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know how big their salary payroll is, but you've got guys in there making $100 million over 5 years or whatever. Don't hold me to the specificity of the number, but it's the same idea that NFL just didn't roll out and be as big as they are. And any ball and stick sport that you like, it's TV contracts, and it's especially now with social media, and it's, you just keep making the base bigger and bigger, and everybody can benefit from it. Johnny, you and I've talked about this off the air, and I still don't understand why Feld Motorsports owns the Monster Truck Series. They own all the trucks, and all the drivers are contracted to Feld to drive those trucks. You don't see Feld doing the same thing remotely close to that in Supercross.
It'd be too expensive.
But it's the model, right? What is it that they saw over there? Like what excuse me. Earlier, Valentin said, have its own factory class, right? And then you have a privateer race. Johnny, you've been advocating this for as long as we've known each other. And the privateers have a prize purse where the factory riders, they're getting paid by the salaries of the OEMs, et cetera. But the idea that why wouldn't Feld want to have, let's say, 6 teams, let's just say one of each color. Feld is, they're ponying up the money for the A show. Then you allow privateers to come in. They're still bad dudes. And if you run a point series, then maybe you can get a chance to displace a rider that's on a Feld-owned team. Now you kind of have that. It's just like cycling, right? Everybody's fighting to be that top dog. Tour de France starts, and all of a sudden your key players all of a sudden having a bad week. What do? They shift who the main, everybody's protecting this new rider because, like Valentin said earlier, this guy's just off for the 3-week tour at France. That's okay. They're not going to fire him. They're just going to reprioritize who's defending, who's racing for who.
Mm-hmm.
Taddy's not having a good week. All right. So we got to protect him to see if he can come around on week 2. All of a sudden, Taddy's like off the back. Taddy's role changes. Somebody else is just having a good tour. Obviously, that's an extreme example because that guy's unbeatable, but that's a different story. But, it's, I don't know, the business model.
He got beat at a little weekend race. There was like a weekend race that after he already did one of the, I'm just saying that he wasn't really trying too hard and somebody was trying really hard with like a VO2 max of like 85 that.
Well, it's just the thing that I don't understand when we're talking about the business model is we have somebody that's with us today, extremely talented on a motorcycle. And if we look at that kind of talent in any other sport, he'd be in that top 1/2 of 1%.
I mean, he already is.
Well, he is, but he doesn't have the same financial income that top 1/2 of 1% has in a ball and stick sport. So if we model a business model of success, we could change this if we wanted to. I just firmly believe that that the industry doesn't want it to change. This. Go ahead, Valentin.
The big problem of it's like, how to explain that? We don't have enough visibilities So the main sponsors of MXGP series, of team, of here in the US, Supercross and Motocross, it's always motocross companies. It's rental, helmets, some 6D, some guys like this who support a championship. So this investment they do for super championship, then teams, they ask them also support. So the cake is really small. It's a small cake. And we try to give a bit money to everyone because we don't have enough visibilities. If we have more visibilities like Netflix and stuff like this, if you see Formula One, or MotoGPs or cycling team, they are not supported by Pirellis or by company of motorsport. They are supported by company who's, I don't know,
outside the sport.
Yeah, communication outside from sports.
Oh yeah, big finance companies, crypto companies, all sorts of just baller money type stuff.
But here's what's crazy to Valentine's point. When JGR, Joe Gibbs Racing, they have 2 of the top NASCAR cars, right? At the time, Joe Gibbs had an Home Depot car. Joe Gibbs Racing offered the JGR motocross team as an added value, and Home Depot said, no, thank you. What's that tell you? They were going to offer, imagine seeing a Home Depot Suzuki running around the track. Home Depot said, no, thank you, because there was no perceived value by Home Depot. Now, if I'm a promoter, that's a huge red flag for me. Now, you can get into conspiracy theories and all this other stuff. Why wouldn't they want Home Depot to be attracted to our sport? That's, to me, seems to be the question that everybody keeps asking.
Well, because the sport is mildly bleeding too. Because you look at what happened with Geico Honda, and then you look at what happened with Tutu Motorsports when he had the CBD companies and everything come in. As soon as the overhead kind of sees, hey, look, there's money here, they poach them and say we could do more exposure for you sponsoring the series rather than the team, and so that gives a bad taste in everybody's mouth because they're like, hey, I did the hard work to go find outside sponsor, and then now they've decided to cut my funding because they can get more exposure by just doing the title sponsors way. And so if the sport is the sanctioning body doing better, all the teams will trickle down and do better. So Valentine's point, like, he's the one that brought up the topic of, if we just had the Netflix show, how exponential growth it would be. Maybe the first year or so you would, okay, here's that $5-6 million deal. But then after that, everyone's salaries should increase. And yeah, it just seems like a no-brainer.
You have to add another level of dynamic though, Johnny. Valentine had just mentioned, hey, if we got the Netflix, we get more sponsors coming in.